Hey, what's up, guys? Going over another G.I.Combat. Actually, I lost the cover on this, which is a shame because this is one of the infamous covers referring to the second Hornet Tank story in the back, which is pretty much one of the most brutal war stories that I've ever seen in a comic around this time. Okay, before you start getting the Vietnam Journal, and you start getting maybe some more realistic, even some of the Garth Ennis World War II stories, but here it's still 83, okay? And the Hornet Tank came out in the 60s. Kind of a wacky idea. Right? You know the premise, where the tank is the ghostly guardian of Jeb Stuart watches the tank, which originally was the Stuart M3. At this point, it was a Sherman. There was a patchwork tank at one point where they made a tank. The crew made their own tank, which actually they should have kept because it would actually make sense why this tank was able to take out like Tiger tanks. If they had made their own like patchwork tank that had different abilities, they should have stayed with that. But I guess eventually they just went to the M4, okay, a Sherman, right? Which actually there's actually a story based on that, and I actually have the issue where that becomes a conflict. But anyway, like I keep mentioning, the 80s stories, Kanigher starts getting really, really dark. Okay, the stories really become a lot darker, somber at the end. Okay, and the Glansman's art. The guy was always a great artist, but his art is reaching like master level at this. When you see this, this is amazing. To me, this is like the perfect art style. Okay, between the manga and between the superhero comic stuff, this is how I'd really want to draw if I had the ability to. Anyway, I mean, the story here, you start to see, okay, there's certain things you have to understand. The M4 is going to be taking out Tiger tanks. Listen, at this point, the tank combat is not the focus of these stories as much, okay? I keep believing. I keep being reminded of this. Like, I keep bringing the thing of Robotech, the New Generation, Mospeter, right? I keep thinking of it because the stories in that and the episodes in that and the stories in this are very, very close, okay? And that whole idea of the episode opens up or the issue opens up, they're going to focus usually on one character, and they're going to go through, the action usually starts out already in the action, okay? But the real story is not even the war. The real story is more and more how the characters are affected by the situation they're caught up in. So here we have Rick. Rick is the young guy in the group, the gunner, right? But he's starting to feel really alone, right? Jeb's got his command, right? He's going to be a career guy. He'll be in one of the brass someday. Back home, Gus is a deacon, right? He's got his religion, right? Sergeant Craig's got his son, but he's all, I've always been a loner, right? No one ever gave me a second look. I came into this world alone. I guess that's how I leave it, right? Lonely soldier boy. And of course, Jeb Stuart, his ghost is there, you have a soldier's sickness, loneliness, right? And there's only one cure, but you can't hear me, right? So, of course, they're in southern Italy, I guess, because they were in every theater. They were at every combat theater, but they're in the liberated part of Italy. You could argue the traitor part of Italy, but you got the mustache Pete here, like, hey, my daughter Gina. Sam could draw some really beautiful women. And obviously they like each other, right? And I like this one here too, right? No, a man carries a gun against death. A woman carries food for life, right? Now she's not condemning the man. This is the paradigm of humanity. This is the proper balance here, okay? Right? But anyway, and so of course they fall in love, but tragedy's gonna strike. Regina, she survived, but she's disfigured. Right. He's gonna marry her, right? She doesn't, you could look upon his face every day. It's a little touching to me, Of course, she runs off. She thinks he's marrying her out of pity. And then, of course, they got to move on. So, excuse me. And they never went back to the town, right? So now, instead of having the endings where everybody's smiling and patting themselves on the back or anything, The endings frequently in the Haunted Tank stories are like this, where it's just tragic, sad, somber, and the effects of war, right? You see Rick is becoming more bitter, right? So, we're going to the next story here. Oh, the OSS. Oh, right. You know what you know who they become eventually, right? Uh, one of the great. Man. Anyway, the OSS stories, right? Real quick. Cruz. I had said that in the last video that a lot of these artists were either Spanish or Filipino. They're almost all Filipino, okay? And the aspect of that I find fascinating is that particularly Cruz, right? What you're seeing here, in my opinion, is a synthesis of Japanese manga and the European comic art style, particularly the Spanish style, because you saw a lot of Spanish artists, on the continent, in the British House of Hammer magazine. They almost use entirely Spanish artists in a lot of the horror comics, but the Filipino style seems to be a real combination of the Japanese manga and the European style. Very interesting. Okay, now maybe someone might disagree with me, but I'm telling you what I could see. And OSS, you have this particular story. You have this character now. It's the early 80s, right? The ninja craze is happening, okay? Before Naruto, you had Enter the Ninja. You had Shokusugi. You had Chinese Super Ninjas. You had, Ninja and the Dragon's Den. You had all these ninja craze. You had us kids, running around with somehow getting our hands on ninja weapons and throwing them at people, throwing them at stuff in the back. It was a great time, right? Very safe, But, this character, he was in a couple of episodes. He is a Japanese ninja who is helping the Allies, okay, because his parents were hung by the Imperial Japanese government, right? And he beats up some British sailors here. Oh, let's toss this snap eye beggar into the river. Yeah, well, you did wash, dig mate, bop. And I like this. Good show, Nip. They call him a Nip, right? But a lot of interesting little things here too, right? He was on a mission to kill Emperor Hirohito, which these scumbags would have tried to do, right? He deliberately failed. Okana is not a Nisei, right? A Japanese American, so he, as a true Japanese, I like the different little things that are coming across here. Okay, he could not kill the Emperor. You're damn right. Why would you even think that this guy would kill the Emperor? But now there's a new weapon. There's some secret weapon called the Divine Wind. We need to know what the Divine Wind is. Well, we know what it is. we know now what it is. So, but like I said, the art's really, really good. Cruz, and there's other ones I'll go over. So obviously he's leading the kamikazes, right, to go, right. You see, it will be an honor to die so gloriously with you, Lieutenant. Right? It's like the idea is crazy. So he leads them, away, and then obviously the only survivor is the guy, right? And he crashed, and he's like, he realizes that he's a traitor, right? I saw through your ruse, traitor, right? There's only one way to wipe out my shame. Bazaar! And I remember he committed harikari in a strange and brutal fashion. As a Japanese, I understand, but the Westerners never will. And then, you're a lucky dip. Right. The kamikazes are finished, like that setting sun. Right. You forget, Captain, the sun always rises again. Now, it's funny, right? Because Battle of Okinawa happens, and the kamikazes do a real number on the Americans, if you remember that battle. So, anyway, but that was kind of the ninja. This is the kind of story. But the art, man, look how good the art is, man. So, a lot of shout out to the Filipino artists, the unsung artists, too. Here's another one, Ernie B. Patricio. Right. There's a story here. This was kind of, it's like a side story of a supply guy, who's like, I want to be fighting, I want to be killing Germans, right? And instead he's like, he's a supply guy, but, there's so much action that he has to do, right? I joined a man's army to kill Germans, but instead he's facing death without weapons. So he said he doesn't appreciate how much danger he's in, right? But you need the supplies. I mean, technically, guy, you're the whole reason why the Allies were destined to win because of all the materials, supplies, and logistics, right? So you actually were more important than any of these poor bastards, in the end, who were fighting. But and I told you, I keep mentioning my first stepdad was in Nam, and he was one of these guys, and he almost got killed too. So messed up story. So now let's round this out. Let's finish this off. Okay, this is probably one of the best haunted tank stories ever. Okay, Dead Letter Office, right? Dead Letter Office was the nickname for you had to write the person soldier who got killed. You had to write his family, and we regret to inform you. So, and this time the focus is on this character, right? He's the captain of the tank brigade. He's the ones that send them out, right? So, call me Skipper, right? The CO. I wait for him to return. If I'm lucky, they all come back, right? Sometimes they don't all come back, right? And I like the snow effect. Well, you see. So here he is. This isn't a pen, but a bayonet, fisting in my guts. Okay. We're talking about this is comics for kids, right? What can I write to the next kid, Right? The form letter. What about my report, Lieutenant? How can I tell the truth to the people back home about their loved one's death if I wasn't there, right? And of course, Jeb's like, that's the duty of a commanding officer. You follow a chain of command, right? You're in command, right? Of a dead letter officer. So, this freaking story, right? They get ambushed. And Jeb is still in the town with the other guys fighting. And this guy got hurt. And he's like, you know what? That's it. I'm going to go out there. All right, guys. I'm replacing him. Let's roll. So he goes to help him. All right. And so, the combat, obviously, once again, M4s and actually, M4s and T-34s always had a better chance against the heavy panzers in urban fighting because he could get real close, right? And that's exactly what happened. But the thing is this, you hear the guy screaming as they're burned. And he's like, keep going. He's like, no one deserves to die like that. Like pieces of meat being broiled, right? And so now he finds each one of his tank guys, one by one. Lieutenant Phillips, thank God the hatches are open, right? But when I got nearer, I could see heaps of burning rags on the ground. They weren't rags. And he's like, you could smell, that's what was left of the crew after they got out of the tank, right? Then he finds another one, Lieutenant Taylor's tank, right? And then some guy starts shooting at him. And it's Lieutenant Taylor obviously has a head injury and he's shell-shocked. And he's shooting at his commander, and they run him over by accident, And then another one. And this was the cover here where another guy, Lieutenant Kirby, his crew's all dead. And look at that, man. Now, the cover of this comic originally was where you see a burning tank and the guy coming out as a flaming skull. And they say, that's Jeb, So you thought Jeb Stewart was going to die horribly in this, but it's not. But this, like a lit Halloween pumpkin. So finally, Jeb is the only one, the Haunted Tank's the only one left fighting the Tigers. And so they go at it to help him. All right. And of course, the tank gets hit. He's like, all right, abandon tank. And then he's like, the one guy, he grabs him and his head is hanging by a thread. And all the guys in the tank with him are dead. Right? He didn't get their dog tags. Like, forget it, Skipper. We gotta get out of here before the tank blows. All right. And so now they're back. Like, well, Skipper, now that you saw what happened, you can tell the truth to the next kid. And he's like, can I? Can I tell them what horrible deaths their loved ones suffered? Right? And he just, burning rags at once Lieutenant Phillips and his crew, mango steel and flesh. Lieutenant Corby lit like a Halloween pumpkin. But seeing my brain most of all was the crazed Lieutenant Taylor attacking my tank and being crushed under the treads. Yes, I knew what I had to write. Dear Miss Taylor, I regret to inform you that your son was killed in action, fighting valiantly. A credit to you and his country. There's a good chance Taylor probably didn't get to have a family yet, okay? Which is, and multiply this story by countless men in all the countries, from Russia to Germany, Japan, America, Britain, France, and you sort of have a backdrop of what is happening now. You know, boy, way to bring the mood down. Anyway, this comic still holds up to me, and that means a lot. All right, later.